Welcome back on the VST channel. Yet another Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra versus the Vivo X100 Ultra roll test. And yesterday I just shot the Expert roll versus the Super roll comparison. But remember, the Expert roll and also the Super roll from Vivo combines multiple raw images into one image, okay, and thus again applying some processing and of course some more things going on the background. So it's not really technically just a raw picture, it is heavily manipulated and processed. So today I'm doing the follow-up on this video where I'm using straight just promote raw. I'm using the 50 megapixel on the main camera of the S24 Ultra and on the Vivo, and also the 50 megapixel 5x optical zoom camera or the Super Telephoto on the Samsung and the 5x on the Vivo. But remember, the Vivo X100 Ultra doesn't have a 5x dedicated camera. It's 3.7 where the optical starts and then it's hybrid. So what we are observing right now is a shot from the main camera. Okay, you can also see it's 50 megapixel, you can see the ISO, everything is set on automatic. This here is the S24 Ultra on your left, this here is the Vivo X100 Ultra on the right. And what we can observe right now in this scenario, guys, this immediately drew my attention when I start zooming in here, right, on the house. I can see that the S24 Ultra was able to retain the focus as to the picture on the Vivo uses a different focus point. So I don't really think that's a minus or negative, but this is the reality. If we start zooming in here on the greenery to try to see really which of those phones is able to preserve the natural detail, and in this case I do believe that the S24 Ultra in this particular shot has a bit more of the edge, because again the image on the Vivo X100 Ultra is just not so satisfying. So if I am to just explore here a bit more of that greenery, you can just see the S24 Ultra image in this case looks better. We see we have natural detail, and this is not the case with the Vivo X100 Ultra. So let's just try to see some of the other details. I think in general this shot really is better on the S24 Ultra. So in this particular scenario I will award the prize to the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. Remember, it is 50 megapixel dedicated on the S24 Ultra, and here I'm using the raw image with the high detail option. It is again 50 megapixel. Now let's enter the zoom territory. So remember, 5x optical zoom on the S24 Ultra. This here is again at 50 megapixel, and here guys I'm already using 5x hybrid zoom on the Vivo X100 Ultra. So let's just first compare the greenery. Honestly guys, yeah, besides of course the fact that the colors are just a bit different, I guess white balance, everything else is really comparable. And when I start to zoom in a bit, we can see some over sharpening on the Vivo, and it doesn't really look so good. I don't know why, but it seems that Samsung here is also able to provide a better detail. Let's just check and compare this building here. I just want to check the dynamic range. It is overall kind of the same, although by the way we can see that the X100 Ultra is capturing a bit more of the highlights and shadows, so most probably a bit more of that detail in the Vivo X100 Ultra picture. Let's try to see what happens here. Let's zoom. Okay, this balcony, I do believe that it is quite the same. And also guys, very important, let's pay attention to the sky. By the way, I was also able to capture some birds flying in. The sky representation is okay, there is not a lot of noise. Although guys, see here, this is what I wanted to show you, because later in this test I'm also going to do an ISO comparison. I want to see what happens when I'm using higher and higher ISOs, and you know how it goes. The more ISO you use, you pump the photosensitivity, and of course you introduce more noise. And at 32 ISO on the S24 Ultra we can see that there is a bit more artifacts compared to the Vivo X100 Ultra. So let's do one more check on the greenery. This is how it looks like. I guess that here I will have to call it a draw. Now guys, these next two scenarios are very interesting. You might see that the exposure is down. Now, what is going on here guys? On the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, I'm able to use -2 EV exposure correction or +2 EV. But on the Vivo X100 Ultra, I'm able to go and use as low as -3 EV and of course +3 EV. So in this particular scenario, guys, I'm using -2 EV on the Samsung picture and -3 EV on the Vivo picture. So what I'm gonna do right now, guys, I'm going to manually correct the exposure. So I'm gonna put +2 on the Samsung to just correct and see what is going to happen and how much of that detail and even more dynamic range I will be able to recover. And I'm going to do the same for the Vivo picture. So for the Vivo, remember -3. So now I'm going to put here +3 to just correct the exposure in post. And then of course my idea is to just compare these two shots. So right now I have on the left the S24 Ultra with the exposure correction, and it looks overexposed, so maybe a bit more. But what is also important is with this type of manipulation, yeah, we can clearly see with 50 ISO on both images, we have a bit more of the artifacts here. And in general, if we have to obtain, oh, and look the greenery, guys, see here. I guess that the Vivo is losing the detail here. Okay, let's just check and compare a bit more of that greenery. Yes, absolutely. Looks over sharpened and somehow digitally processed and a bit more natural on the Samsung. What I want to do on the Samsung, I want to go and limit the exposures. Okay, so let's just put +1. Okay, I'm gonna put +1 here, and then guys, I want to go back on the Vivo image and I want to correct the Vivo image, so not use +3, let's use only +2. Now let's compare them again and see if that somehow managed to be a bit better. I guess at this point of time, maybe just a slightly bit better, but if you see this area here, it is clearly that the S24 Ultra still was able to capture a better picture. All right, let's just see what happens here. Oh, wow, okay. Yes, this here doesn't look so good. So definitely S24 Ultra scoring the win here. And now guys, I have the very same scenario here, but in the opposite. So in this scenario, I used +2 EV on the Samsung and +3 EV on the Vivo X100 Ultra. Okay, so I need of course to try edit it. So I'm going to compensate the Samsung shot with -2. Ooh, what? No, this doesn't look so nice. And I want to compensate also the Vivo X100 Ultra, and for that I'm gonna need to put the -3. Oh wow, okay. Okay, you can just see this didn't really work out well for both of them. It seems that this didn't really work out quite nicely for neither of them, but at least here on the Samsung we are still able to see some greenery, and this is not the case on the Vivo. Alright, now let's do the very same scenario, but this time with the super telephoto camera ST, okay, the 5X. And this time it seems to be quite the opposite, as we have the greenery here, but we can see that the image on the Vivo is very noisy. And overall, yeah, compared to the S24 Ultra, I do believe that the S24 Ultra is producing a better image in this scenario. And now guys, we have the opposite scenario. So here I was using +2 and +3. Okay, let's see here. I want to see what happens directly from the phones, guys. Okay, no, not a lot of noise. So maybe with the manipulation something happens. So now let's go here and reduce the exposure with -2 on the Samsung photo. And now I need to reduce the exposure on the Vivo photo with -3. All right, let's see what we are gonna end up with. This time a bit better. So it seems that when I'm doing this compensation in that particular shot, we don't see this excessive noise on the Vivo, and overall I guess a very similar output on both phones. Okay, so guys, now I'm gonna show you something that is very interesting. I'm gonna test the ISO of those phones starting with 50. All right, and at 50 you know the story. So right now I'm using the main camera. We still again observe when I'm shooting RAW and the focus here is somehow in the center because maybe of the bigger sensor, but Samsung is able to get a wider focus point. But overall, no visible noise. I like both shots. I do feel the Vivo X100 Ultra is a bit more organic, showing a bit more of the real colors. And maybe just here, guys, in the sky, at 50 ISO, we can start to observe some of the defects. Now it's gonna get more interesting as I'm jumping to 100 ISO, and take a look at this. So 100 ISO, the Vivo X100 Ultra is still able to give a very nice composed shot with a proper exposition, with nice natural details. The Samsung starts to overexpose a bit the more I pump the ISO, and now you can see here we get more of this, which is not looking great. As you can imagine, this gets even worse for the S24 Ultra. Now pay attention to the sky when I'm zooming in. Also, something interesting, I didn't change any of the settings on the Vivo, but most probably the moment I went to 800 ISO, somehow I lost the high details and now it's just a regular RAW. Anyway, right, it is 12 megapixel, it's not 50, but you can see what happens here. Yeah, it is starting to decompose a bit. And this guys here is the maximum that you can do on the S24 Ultra. So 3200 ISO is the maximum, and you can see at that ISO, I think the Samsung is completely gone, absolutely garbled, like there is no usable information. Just for your information, guys, you can pump up more ISO on the Vivo X100 Ultra. You can potentially go to 12,800. This is here, just another stop, 6,400. So this is the RAW comparison, guys, the regular RAWs. Do you think that the S24 Ultra is producing a better, a more balanced and keeping more details RAW shot versus the RAW shot from the Vivo X100 Ultra? Let me know what you think down below in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, VST over and bye.